So, piggybacking off the hormone conversation for women, I want to touch on, performance enhancements for women and how they affect female hormones down the line, because I think this is something that is a huge, huge question mark. And a lot of women have taken steroids for a long time, since the 70s and 80s. And there's so many horror stories of, female bodybuilders from the past that now basically accidentally did something permanently that changed the way that their hormones work and how they look. And I feel like not a lot of people understand how this works. So as a guy, when we take testosterone or we take something from outside, I believe that we will never produce testosterone at the same level again. It permanently changes us. And that, like, you can't basically come off. Anyone that I've ever seen to try to come off as a guy, like actually PCT and come off, has been in worse shape after that process than before they ever took anything. So I think that for a guy, it's really a, lifetime commitment if you do want to get on, and you're going to basically be on TRT forever at that point. As a woman, what do you think is the way to approach, like, how do you approach like performance enhancing? I've heard some coaches talk about setting a testosterone base, even as a woman, like a small testosterone base. If a girl comes to you and says, I want to do, like, let's say a bikini show, I know everyone's different, but what kind of compounds, you don't have to talk about dosages, but would you generally use, and what would you completely steer clear from for a woman?
So it depends on the category. For bikini, I've never prepped anyone on gear/steroids. It's totally unnecessary for bikini. I know a few people do it. A few people use Clen, etc. But steroids, testosterone, all of those things are always, in my opinion, unnecessary for bikini for this very one reason. If, as a woman, you're unable to build enough muscle and get lean enough for bikini, then you shouldn't be competing. Because the main reason that women get so fucked up, sorry, am I allowed to swear? I'll try not to.
You're not allowed not to swear.
The main reason people... The main reason women mess themselves up in this industry is because they want to go and do too much too soon. If your diet and training isn't right, adding in gear is not going to do that much for you. All you're going to do is want to take more and more to get results that you could be getting from having a proper training and nutrition plan. Bikini is hard, but it is 100% naturally achievable. The problem is two things. Instagram. People think these results are overnight. People think that this isn't as hard as it is. It is so hard to prep for a show, no matter like what category you're doing. And people say bikini is easy. It's not easy. It's tough. But Instagram makes it seem really accessible and easy for everyone, so they're not necessarily aware of how much work it takes. But also, not everyone is going to be the top of their class at school. And likewise, not everyone is cut out genetically for bodybuilding. So if you've always naturally been a bit kind of doughy, you find it naturally hard to put on muscle, you find it really hard to shift weight, your diet and training is fantastic, bodybuilding probably isn't, going to be the best for you, because you've got to remember there's people with A1 genetics, A1 work rate, sponsorships, everything. Those people are always going to get to the top because they have the work ethic, they've got the money behind them, they're also on performance enhancers, and there's you who can't put on enough muscle for bikini without gear, trying to compete up here. People just need to learn when to take an L, not because it's seen as a failure or what have you, but trying to at amateur level do things that top pros are doing without any real chance of getting anywhere with it, is only going to damage your health. So that's the first thing, is that I'd say bikini gear is totally unnecessary unless you've had a hormone check and your testosterone is naturally too low for a female, you have thyroid issues, or something that can be corrected at holistic level and not steroid level. So if your thyroid is not functioning well for a normal person, you would raise that. If we're talking about the bodybuilding level, you would go above that to help you burn fat. But then obviously you'd have to put in like a little bit of Anavar to mitigate muscle loss, because adding in T3, which would be prescribed by your doctor if you had a thyroid issue, can cut through fat and muscle indiscriminately, especially towards the end of prep when you're doing lots of cardio, your calories are really low. With figure, again, it depends on the client and their goals. If they're going for NPC and they're wanting to go pro, they have the potential to go pro, and there's just a little, they're wanting to go to that next level, then for me, the recommendation is to always start light. If you've never used gear before, a little bit goes a long way. Now, people's interpretation of a little bit is, it really varies from person to person. But there's crazy stuff I've seen. Like 2 years ago, there was this big kind of exposure of a British coach who had been giving his females trend to prep on. And we're talking about bikini girls, never competed before, so novice. This is an absolute no-no. When you're going for steroids as a female, you want to go for the ones on the lowest androgenic scale. So this is your Anavar and your Winstrol, and you don't want to be taking more than 10 milligrams a day, especially if you've never used before. So get diet and training right, get that kind of process going. Once you see the results, the adding in the performance enhancers does exactly that. It enhances that performance. If your baseline performance isn't good, times in 0 by 0 isn't going to get you very far. So everyone should really just kind of get the elements right. As you see a lot of people kind of say after a show, oh, it's because she was on gear why she won. And actually it's not. Like, she won simply because she was better. Bodybuilding isn't a level playing field at all. We're not starting with the same kind of genetic capacity, muscle maturity. There's so many differentiators between our starting points. And people think that gear plays so much more of a part than it actually does. A lot is achievable naturally, especially for a female.
Okay, that was a lot and definitely makes sense. And I've seen a lot of, girls that compete at the Olympia and stuff like that, in bikinis specifically, talk about how they're natural and get like a lot of bullshit for it. And people, all the time calling them out that they're lying and stuff like that. But then you look at the girl and it's like, I don't know, it's like not really, I don't really see why this girl would have to be taking steroids really to look like that. I've seen college athletes, like I remember in my school, there was a really good soccer team where I went to college, and some of the girls were fucking jacked and some of the girls were not jacked, but they didn't even really work out. It just really was, genetics and playing sports, and they looked athletic, like they could probably get on the bikini stage. So I feel like a lot of the time, especially for women, like people forget about genetics. Like, I feel like with the guys, it's like we kind of already know because we've seen so many, like throughout history, so many different guys, so many different genetics and stuff like that, so many different guys lifting. But for females, it's pretty new, this whole sport and everything like that. So I feel like girls don't necessarily understand the genetic aspect for a woman, and they think that it's all drugs and stuff because you're making yourself muscular, right? So they assume that taking male hormones will make you muscular, and that's kind of where the issues are, because when the more male hormones you start to take to get more muscular, the more masculine you're going to get, and you're trying to balance that. So I think it's very hard for women to find that balance. And then the girls who have to take more to get to the same level lose the femininity, and then they complain that they lost because they're not feminine enough. But then why did you take all those steroids if you wanted to be feminine? It doesn't make sense, right? So my question.
And for what? Like, why do these women? Sorry, go on. Yeah, it makes no sense to me to ruin your not. It's not just your femininity, your beauty, because that's in the eye of the beholder, but your fertility, your long-term health as well. For what? Like, it makes no sense for me as a coach, and I'm talking specifically as with the bikini class, is that I have girls who bust their asses to look fantastic, and girls who cheat on their diet, miss training, kind of give up halfway through, take a week off, come back, get on stage and win because they look good with a little bit of work. Meanwhile, the person next to them has busted their ass. It is not fair, but some people just have an easy time with it. And I guess